morning, everybody, and welcome to our week 5 garden tour here at Reach and Reverie. I can't wait to show you guys. We have so much new things this week, so many new things this week, and there's been a ton of growth. Week 5 is a week of explosive growth. So let's start with our 2 new plants that we have in this garden bed. I have a Market More cucumber, and I also planted in my cantaloupe. So these I did give about 2 to 3 weeks to harden off, where I was moving them in and out of the greenhouse during the day. But this week has just been extremely hot. So I'm going to show you on this plant, but you'll see on several of our other plants that they have gotten quite a bit of sun and heat damage. But I'm just going to let these go and see how they do. They are going to live in this bed. This is the place I have for them, and I didn't put a lot of work into protecting them. I do have another cantaloupe in the back garden, and I do have a lot of Keuka Melons, which is a different kind of cucumber, but if this one doesn't take off, I mean, we have a backup cucumber option this year. It is growing really nicely, and this one's actually growing a lot faster than the cantaloupe that I have in the back garden bed. This cantaloupe I planted in the greenhouse, and it's had several weeks to mature before I transplanted it. And the cantaloupe in the back garden I direct sowed, and it's had to deal with crazy temperatures, crazy wind, sun, rain, cold. So I feel like it has struggled just a little bit more to establish itself. But I mean, you'll see this week it's grown a lot since last week. This is my lone survivor of my French breakfast radish, and it is just massive. Like, you could see the width of my finger next to this thing. It is huge for a French breakfast radish. I do plan on letting this one bolt, which means it's going to go to seed and flower. I think the flowers might be good for bringing in pollinators to pollinate some of my beans and herbs, and in the meantime, it's going to look pretty and grow really nicely, and maybe provide a little bit of shade, maybe, to some of my plants over here. And I'm going to collect the seeds, and then I'll have seeds for next season for French breakfast radishes. These 2 are getting a ton of direct sunlight in midday and late afternoon, but they are getting shade from the house until about noon to 1 o'clock. And then they're getting afternoon shade from this massive pecan tree, which has really decided to leaf out this week. I mean, it doesn't feel like spring or summer until your big pecan tree leaves out. Am I right? So once the sun gets to the pecan tree, it'll shade them, and then in the evening it'll get sun again, because that's right where the sun sets, through that hole. Moving on, we have our cilantro, and he has been just a little bit heat stressed as well. Cilantro is more of a cool shade plant, but this is where I had room for him in my herb garden. I think that when I decided to plant him here, I was thinking that these would kind of fill out more and provide some shade for him, and I think they will. We'll just see if it grows in time. I didn't think it was going to be this hot this fast. So here's my herbs that I direct sowed that have not come up yet, despite the several weeds that I have popping up. So we'll come back and see if those grow. My purple potted pole beans and my Kentucky green beans are really doing amazing this week. Almost all, if not all, of my pole beans have decided to grab onto the trellis. I like these 2. So you can see they kind of crisscross. This one grew here, and that one grew there, and they're growing up. It's pretty neat. And then that one's my beautiful Kentucky green. You can see the stalk on it is green, versus the purple potted pole beans. They have reddish purple brown stalks, and they're gonna have beans that are purple, and these are gonna be beans that are green. I think my purple potted pole beans have generally done a little better than my Kentucky green beans. These are almost reaching the top of the trellis now. So I did decide to add this burlap sheeting of shade for some of my herbs in this garden because they just weren't doing very well with how hot we've been getting. All of my herbs I have, I'm going to show you. I have my yarrow and my catnip, and I have my blue Sirius sage. And these have been growing really well in the greenhouse where the light is filtered. And it was a little bit cooler before I moved them out here. So when I moved them out here at the beginning of last week, they were doing okay, and then our temperatures shot up on average about 15 to 20 degrees from what they had been, because last week we were in the 70s and 80s. This week we had not dropped below 90 degrees in midday temperatures. So they came out here, they were adjusting to new life in the ground, and then they get blasted with this intense sunlight, and they didn't like it very much. Here's a closer look at some of my beans. I think the beans that are getting a little bit of the shade are really benefiting. But we'll see. I have some that are shaded and some that are not, and the ones that are not are doing fine, even though my cilantro and my melons are not doing as good. My little blue butterfly pea in the back, he is growing a lot slower, but he's healthy and he's doing good. So I'm hoping with the shade he's going to start growing up. I know generally peas don't love the heat, they're more cold weather, but I'm going to try to grow them and see if I can grow some of those beautiful blue flowers that are going to be worth the wait. I have my 3 sunflowers in this pot, and they're doing really well. However, I know this pot honestly is a little too small for these 3 plants. In the long run, it's just going to make a smaller plant with smaller blossoms, and that's okay, because I think having some sunflowers blooming right here is just going to look beautiful next to this garden bed. You can see the cholla this week. This is our 2nd year with this cholla, and he's doing really good. He was a little stressed. Our winter was kind of on the chaotic side. It was hot days, cold days, back and forth all winter long. It wasn't very consistent. So you can see anywhere where he's purple, he is stressed. But he is getting greener. Some of that purple's fading away, and he is experiencing some new growth. So I can't wait. Chollas, they give a beautiful pink flower, and out here they do really well. We live in western Texas, far western Texas, in the Chihuahuan Desert. So if you want to grow a cactus, this is the place to do it. In this area, I have these nice shade and wind blockers, these chairs. But I am probably going to make him, in all seriousness, a better shade structure. This is our newest addition to the homestead. This is a red bell pepper plant that I was gifted as a gift from work for my 1-year anniversary working where I work. So if any of you guys are watching this, thank you so much for my plant. I love it. He lives in this pot. I don't know if this is where the pot's going to end up staying, but for now, this is where I have him. That's why I just have these chairs as shade for him, because I didn't want to build a permanent structure if I'm not really sure if this is where he's going to end up living. In the back right here, I took a clipping that I pruned off of one of my Blue Beauty tomatoes, and I planted him in the ground. This clipping was like 10 inches long, and I stuck him all the way down in there because anywhere where you see these like hairs on the stem, when you plant a tomato down in there, he's going to grow roots from that stem. So I felt like the deeper he is, the better, healthier root system he can have. He looks kind of puny right now just because I planted him yesterday. He's really, really stressed. But because his stem is really rigid, I still have hope that he might make it. Now, it may be too hot for him to really establish himself. It's going to be 95 today. I do shade him, and I am going to water him, and we're just going to see if he wants to make it or not. Over here, we're doing very good this week. These are my tomatillos that were really puny. I didn't even put them in the garden bed because I didn't think it would be worth it with how small they started out to be. But if you look at them now, look at how much bigger they are this week. I think they really benefited from how sunny and hot we were this week. They've grown really nicely. Here is my Husky red cherry tomato that one of my boss from work gave me. We kind of traded some plants. I gave her a Jardel, and she gave me this. And he's looking really healthy. He does have some white flies, and he does have a little bit of sun damage, but if y'all go back and see him from last week, I think this plant has doubled in size, and he is flowering. He has some flowers. So I'm really happy. I can't wait to have some cherry tomatoes. Oh my goodness, guys, I'm so excited. These are my two Blue Beauty tomatoes that ended up in pots. I didn't have space for them in the raised garden beds, so I think they're actually doing pretty well over here. They get a lot more shade from our pecan tree, and although tomatoes like a lot of sunlight, I think if you live in a place like Western Texas where it's really dry and really hot, you can't really follow the rules with what plants need, what plants don't need. You really need to look at them and say, okay, in a really hot climate, maybe some part shade will benefit these tomato plants. So they're actually, this one is looking so healthy. He's nice and tall. I haven't pruned him too awfully much. This one has struggled quite a bit. I thought I was going to lose him. He had a lot of transplant shock. He does have some leaves that aren't very pretty. I'm probably going to prune those off. But he is stronger now. He wasn't holding himself up the first week I planted him, and now he is without support. So I think he's going to make it. I did plant some marigolds at the base of these to help pollinate, and we'll see if they come up in time. My girls are begging for treats. What is it, girls? I hear you. I do. I don't have any treats today. Maybe in a little bit. This pot has a Art Combs Ancient Watermelon, and look at how long he is this week. He's almost going to climb out of the pot. I think by the next weekly tour, he will probably be on the ground over the pot, and I'm probably going to have to turn the pot so my chickens don't eat him. My Teddybear Sunflower in this pot is doing very good. Look, it looks like he wants to flower. And my nasturtiums are a little stunted in this pot. I'm not sure if it's competing for space with the other plants or if it's just the dynamic of them being started a little bit later, or if it's the weather. I mean, these might be a different variety than the ones I have in my other garden bed, but just wait till you see those. They're much larger. The nasturtiums in my back garden are probably this big compared to little. But that's okay. I do see some damage, some stress on these plants. They're a lighter color than my other nasturtiums. Pretty much everything in this pot is a really light color. But I'm just going to watch them, and I mean, they're growing really big and they're growing pretty fast. Maybe I don't know, maybe fertilizer would help. I'm going to look into it. But yeah, all of these plants, they're growing pretty good, but they're all a lighter color than the rest of the plants in my garden. I have my Keuka Melon right here, and he's taking off, and he's doing pretty good. I am still trying to train him up. He's generally grabbing on, but everywhere where there's new growth, he just doesn't want to settle for straight up. He goes and reaches all around, and finally when I don't let him grab anything, he's like, okay, I guess I'm going to climb the stalk. So I've been fighting with this Keuka Melon all season. He's actually shooting off a second stalk out this way, and he's already grabbed onto the ground, and he grabbed onto this weed. But I love it. I can't wait until we get some fruit off of this Keuka Melon. If any of y'all haven't heard of Keuka Melons before, they're like this little tiny cucumber. It's about the size of a grape, but it looks like a watermelon. And when you bite into it, it's supposed to have a flavor of like a lime tasting cucumber. They're also called Mexican sour gherkins. So we're really excited to try them for the first time here on our little homestead. This week I did move out another acorn squash from the greenhouse. He's kind of leggy. We'll see how he turns out. I put him in this pot because I didn't know where else to put him. He was getting too big for his little solo cup. So I have him hardening off under the cover of this other shade cloth. So I built this shade structure for my Jardel Pumpkin, which is one of my favorite plants this year. Look at him. He's doing really well. Now this Jardel, I noticed that he did not like the heat. Every day in the middle heat of the day, he was just so droopy and upset and unhappy, hating life. So I gave him this shade structure, and he's actually really just blossomed out. I mean, not literally blossomed, but he has really developed nicely. His leaves are just humongous. Look at how big those leaves are. And you can see he does have stress from the sunlight. So with this shade structure, he's thrown out another arm. I really want him to grow this way. So I'm gonna keep trying to like push him, like, come on, grow that way, buddy. But we'll see next week if I was successful in training this Jardel Pumpkin to do what I want him to do. He is going to be huge, so I don't know if I'm going to have really any say in where he grows or not. But I'm going to be along for the ride because I want a blue Jardel Pumpkin this year. Chicken forage is looking kind of raggedy. I might just end up feeding the rest to the chickens this week. This is something that I just stick the top through the fence. Girls, come on. Come on, girls. You just stick the top through the front and let them kind of eat on it a little bit. But not to the point where they kill the plants. And then, of course, they get other snacks throughout the day, too. I spoil my chickens. And then the chicken forage goes back in the chicken planter, and I let it grow a little bit more. I don't know if that's the best way to grow chicken forage, but that is what I'm doing at the moment. Guys, it's only 8 o'clock. Help me, please. It's too hot. Hey, girls. Good morning. Good morning, girls. My lovely girls. I'm going to walk this way so I can show y'all my amazingly beautiful rose bush. This is my rose. That one's looking kind of, ugh. I love roses. And then the one over here, I don't think he liked the heat. He is dropping all of his blossoms. But he's pretty. I like that light pink color. But yeah, I don't think he liked how hot we got this week. The Keuka Melon over here, I didn't show y'all in last week's video. I got kind of distracted and ended up forgetting to show y'all. He has reached the top. About at last week's video, he was probably this high. And now he's gone and started climbing down this pine tree. So this is going to be really pretty. I wonder how he's going to fill it out. I really think I might train this arm to go this way, and then we'll have some little Keuka Melons hanging from this pine tree. Hey girls. I left the chicken forage back there. I know y'all guys want more. I'll have to give y'all a kiwi or something. So my morning glories have really done well this week. All 3 of them are grabbing onto this hanging basket and starting to climb. Last week, I don't think any of them were climbing. Now, I do see a lot of unhappiness here. They are not very happy morning glories. They all look really stressed. But I really just want to see some beautiful flowers. I don't really know what to do with them. I might add some fertilizer and see if that helps. But really, I think it's just the heat. I think they're just going to have to suck it up and deal with how hot it is here. My Keuka Melon down here is doing pretty good. He's sprawling out all over the place. I think he's going to end up going up this tree instead of the one I wanted him to climb. But I'm just happy that he's doing well. If anything, if we just get some fruit on him, I'm going to be happy. I don't really mind that he's not filling out the way I thought he would. Keuka Melons, as I'm realizing this year, are just a lot slower to really grow. So that's okay. Now my parsley plant, he's kind of upset that we've had 95-degree weather. He is really bolting. And those are kind of pretty. Nice for attracting pollinators. But other than that, I don't really know what we're going to get out of him today or this year, except for just having another plant growing in the garden. My new okra plant, he's doing pretty good. I actually have something coming up here. In this pot, I planted some flowers and some green basil, and we're just going to see. I think some of them kind of washed out of place. So as they come up, we'll see what we have. But this okra is going to grow nice and tall and big, and then I'm hoping we'll have some pollinators and herbs around him. Now guys, my corn. Let's just take a moment to appreciate some corn being grown in a raised garden bed. This is a dwarf variety of corn, so it doesn't need quite as much space as traditional corn, I guess. But this corn, it's supposed to be really prolific, having up to 5 ears of corn on each stalk, and the stalks only get 3 feet tall, and the corn is like 50% more protein than average corn. It's called the bronze dwarf corn. One of these corn is not like the other. I noticed this one has variegated leaves, and I don't know why. It makes me wonder if he is a different species that got thrown in, or if he just has a little mutation. But I kind of like it. Like, I think he's kind of pretty with his striped leaves. This is the one I said I was going to pull up last week. He was growing in a spiral pattern, and he's straightened out. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to pull him. I kind of think it's cute that he's made it. I do know he's going to compete with the other corn. He's too closely spaced, so it's a toss-up. Should I let him have a fighting chance at survival, or should I give the other corn a better chance by giving them more space to grow? That's a hard one, you guys. So here I have my dark green zucchini and my, is it my black zucchini? Black Beauty zucchini. And this one I actually had to cut off one of the stems because he was pushing over my beautiful marigold that I have here. This marigold has been blooming since last Monday. So my last garden video, week 4, I posted on Sunday, and by Monday he was blooming, and when he bloomed, his leaves were like a burgundy, dark red color. And as he's aged this week, he's turned orange, and you can see he has a lot of heat, sun damage too, but he's growing, and look, he has a lot of new areas where he's gonna flower. And as soon as this flower starts to die, I'm gonna deadhead it, which means you cut it off, and that's gonna make the plant, instead of putting energy into this dying flower, it's gonna put energy into growing more flowers. So that's the one marigold I have growing. All of my other marigolds are starting to throw off buds, but I just think, like, come on guys, I got a flower. I'm so excited. I'm wondering how big these zucchinis are gonna get. I think I kind of misjudged their size when I planted them. Knowing how slowly everything's growing over here, I thought that these would take a lot longer to establish, but being up in the raised garden bed with the best soil, with the room to grow, they're growing extremely fast and big. So I'm excited for their fruit, but I'm hoping they don't compete too much with the corn or the tomatillos or anything. But they are providing shade for my shallots. I noticed that this shallot's doing really good growing underneath my zucchini versus some of my other shallots. They're all doing pretty good, but some of the ones on the end here are not happy with the weather we've been having. This one's actually broke from the wind. So guys, my ground cherries, look at them. I think they were maybe half this size yesterday. Not yesterday, last week. It just, oh my gosh, they've really exploded. Ground cherries love this hot weather we've been having. And look at this. That is a ground cherry flower. Oh, it doesn't want to focus. Okay. And this plant is full of them, and so is this one, my 2 ground cherries. They're full of flowers. I hope they're getting pollinated. I have seen a ton of ladybugs and some butterflies this week. Last week I hadn't seen any pollinators, but I have found a couple young praying mantises on my tomatillos. So I'm hoping, like, we're getting a lot more bugs. I'm hoping we're going to have pollinators with all of the bugs that we're having. My tomatillos have loved the hot weather we've been having. They've loved this 70 to 90 degree range that we've been in. And they're full of flowers. Look at this. They're just completely full of them. This one's already done. I'm hoping we have a fruit on that flower bed. We will see. There's a really nice flower. So yes, my tomatillos are very happy. I have added an extra stake because we've been getting crazy, crazy wind. In fact, my tomato over here, the only thing keeping him alive is this stalk because we had a windstorm this week and this one completely broke in half. He is still flowering and he is still green and looks healthy, but the base, you can see, his base is starting to rot. He actually broke completely in half right there. And if I remove the stake, he will fall in half. But what I'm trying to do, and I'm not sure if this is gonna work, is I'm holding him up where his open wound, where he basically was completely amputated from his stalk. And so I have him sitting on the old stalk and I'm hoping he'll fuse together. Now this happened early in the week and he is still alive. So it's been almost a week since that happened and he's still alive. So I think it's working. I just don't know if he's gonna have the vigor or the health of the other plants because he's had to deal with this trauma. But this is a cool learning experience. Can you graft a tomato onto itself and it will still grow? Or once they break in half, is it just done for? We will see. So I'm gonna keep watching him. This one's doing really good, but what I've done is I've used this one. He would be standing out here. I've used this stick to push him this way because I want him to grow up to where I can tie him to this lattice so that he won't have the same fate of this one breaking in half when it gets really windy. These are my 3 black Hungarian jalapenos, and they're doing better. They're still stunted and small, but they have life, and I'm really glad that I didn't get rid of them like I thought I was gonna do a couple weeks ago. My fennel has not liked the heat. His leaves are just really unhappy. My black pansies are doing good. A lot of my flowers are germinating. That's a really good zinnia. This is my Art Combs watermelon. Over here, he's reaching out of the pot this week, and he's a lot darker than the one I had in the front garden bed. Kale's doing good. Broccoli's hanging in there. More zinnias. And then I have my Swiss chard, rainbow chard. And then I actually put this foam mat. I use this mat like for my knees when I am pruning my plants. But I've put him here to shade my red romaine because the red romaine hates the hot weather. I think he's not gonna last too much longer out here. And then of course my blue butterfly pea is doing really good too, benefiting from that shade. This has been a week of growth for my Keuka Melons. Look at that. They love the hot weather. Now they don't like a ton of direct sunlight, but I think now that they've hardened off, they are just embracing the heat and growing really well. My tomatoes this week, look at this. These are my Blue Beauty tomatoes. They're getting nice and big. Ton of flowers, flowers all over all of them. And what I'm doing with these tomatoes is I am pruning off all of the leaves for the lower part of the plant, and that's going to help prevent disease by creating better airflow. So I did that to all of my plants. This week I also went ahead and tied them to the trellis so that they don't get wind damage to help prevent that. This one's just massive. And then I've also pruned some of them down to 1 stalk. However, I think it's too late for this one. He already forked and is pretty developed. He's going to be a 2-stalker. So my Listata Digondia are doing pretty good. This is another one that during a windstorm he broke in half. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm propping him up in a few different places and just letting him heal back onto his stalk. And he's doing pretty good. He's actually growing, although I do notice that the other 3 have caught up to him. He's been the biggest one all week. I mean, all this whole process. And this week these 3 have grown a lot more, and he has spent a lot of time recovering. Purple basil's doing pretty good. My jalapenos are doing really good, really big. My bell peppers are still curly, but I've only watered them once since our last video. And so they're okay with having that little water. and I'm noticing that some of the leaves aren't as curly. They're still curly, but. So my bell peppers are still curly, but some of their leaves are not. So I'm hoping that reducing to only watering once a week is going to help these bell peppers. I actually do, like now that I'm really looking at them, like look at that. That leaf's really healthy, and it looks like only the new growth up here is still curly. So I think I solved the mystery, you guys. Your peppers will be stunted and curled if you overwater them. And you can see, last week, I think even though these had leaf curl, our jalapenos were about the same size as our bell peppers. But this week, you can really see how much my jalapenos have grown and how little my bell peppers have grown. So that really shows, I don't know why the bell peppers were more affected by overwatering than the jalapenos. But in reducing my bell peppers to 1 watering per week, I've also reduced my jalapenos to the same. So I will come in here and I'll water my eggplant and my tomatoes and my sunflower and my nasturtiums and my basil once every 3 days. So that's 2 to 3 waterings per week, and then I will only water my jalapenos and my bell peppers once a week. So about every other time that I water my everything else, I will actually water the bell peppers and jalapenos. So they are sharing a garden bed. So I know some of the jalapenos over there will get some water from the eggplant. The ones in the back will get a little bit of water from the tomatoes and the nasturtiums. But I am really watering at just the base of each plant. I'm not soaking the whole thing, so I'm hoping that that will help. You can see the nasturtiums over here are really, really nice, big, full. I did have to put a stake in this one this week because when it got really windy, the whole plant was just completely turned over. It looked like almost as if the wind had like pulled it up out of the ground, basically like an umbrella, like, you know, when umbrella flies away. My nasturtiums tried to fly away, and that was really horrible because I love nasturtiums. Isn't that crazy? I noticed that the leaves on the top where they get the most sun are darker, and they also have a little less variegation than the leaves on the inside. They're a little more tender and haven't had the same sun exposure. Just think that's pretty neat. My sunflower in the back has grown really nicely this week. But man, these tomatoes are just taking off. They really surprised me. I think that one's like gotta be almost 3 feet tall. And he still has a huge root system because we buried them pretty deeply when we planted them. I did go ahead and plant some white fly traps this week because if you just shake any of my plants, the white flies just come all out of them, and it's been frustrating me a little bit. You can see them in the light, all the little white flies. So white flies, what they do is they live on the bottom side of the leaf and they just suck the nutrients out of your plant. So I also planted one over there, and I planted this white fly trap last night, and you can see all the little dots of flies that are on them. So that to me is like, it's working. I try to be as organic as possible, but I also don't want to, you know, if I can do something about it where I'm not spraying harmful chemicals, then I'm going to try to go that more natural route because we are a chemical-free house. I don't ever want to spray anything where I think that my chickens will, you know, be in the breeze of it or anything. Occasionally I will use neem oil directly on the plants, but that's only if I really see a lot of aphids or anything. So over here, my okra, this is the okra that I transplanted at the beginning of last week. I think I already showed you him, but he's doing pretty good. My cantaloupe has grown a lot this week. I mean, I say a lot, but you can look and compare to my other squash. He still has a ways to go, but I'm really happy with him. My butternut squash, they are here and here. They're growing really well. They're actually at a point where I can tie them to the trellis. Now, my chickens, My chickens did get to them this week. Look at that. In fact, these were a lot longer. They would probably be up to here by now, except my chickens ate the ends off of them. So my solution, I want to come back over with a smaller wire, like potentially hardware cloth, so that they can't peck through the fence. But what I've done for now is I've taken this stick and I've just pushed out the chicken wire about probably 10 inches so that they can't reach my plants while they're establishing, because I need to go and get some hardware cloth, but where I work is out of stock at the moment, and everywhere else in town. I mean, we're not trying to go shopping a whole lot because of COVID-19. So for now, I'm just using this. It's pretty good in there so that the chickens, you can see like my whole arm length is how far they would have to reach through that little chicken wire, which they can't. So that's going to help my butternut have a fighting chance at growing up this trellis. They do have several other areas right here where I'm trying to train them upwards. And I think there's one back here that I'm going to start training upwards. But I'm super happy with butternut. It's one of my favorite squashes. It's beautiful leaves. It's going to be an amazing squash. I can't wait until they start giving me some fruit. Now my acorn squash over here, they are really overachievers. I mean, look at this. I've got some flowers. I have a ton of flowers that are about to bloom too. And if you look over here, this morning, look at what we found. That is an acorn squash flower. And he's got a lot more. So maybe my first fruit out of my squash bed is going to be acorn squash. It is one of those that I think takes a lot longer to mature than, like, you know, a zucchini, but I'm so excited, so excited. My pumpkin's doing good. He is growing an arm. He was growing it this way, and I decided to move him to this side of the pot because I know my chickens are going to eat him, and I'm going to try to grow him that way because I know he has a lot more space to grow if he goes in that way. This Jardel Pumpkin is not as big as the one I have in the front yard, but he is competing with a lot more plants than the one in the front. And the one in the front gets a lot more care. I water that one just about every day, and this one's on my once every 3-day watering regimen. This okra, look at him. Aren't those just so fascinating leaves? And he has some buds that he's thinking about giving me some fruit. I'm really excited about okra. I really like it. It's really healthy for you. A lot of this is really healthy, but all right, guys, this is week 5 garden. I am amazed. I am shocked. Every day that I come out here, everything is just a little bit bigger and a little bit greener. So I'm just sure next week is going to hold even more surprises. Just look at those tomatillos. My gosh. Tomatoes. They're really nice. I'm hoping we're going to get a fruit. So that one flower that I did show y'all during my last week's video, it did end up falling off. A lot of times when you get into temperatures above 95 degrees, your flower blossoms are just like, no, not favorable, and they will fall off. So I knew when I said we'll be lucky if that's my first tomato, it was a risk that, not a risk, but it's not a for sure thing. If you get a flower, it doesn't mean you're going to get a tomato where that flower is. So there's some other flowers on my tomato plants. So we will see. And I know I showed y'all last week this one I thought was a fasciated blossom. I am almost sure now that it is. I am sure now that it is. This one right here. He's going to be really, really huge. Huge, ugly, gnarly tomato. And I'm going to leave him there because I want to see some weird tomatoes this year. They don't all have to be perfectly round and symmetrical. That'd be really cool to see one that's just like a gnarly multiple tomato. All right, well, I can't wait to see how much it grows next week. I'm going to keep you guys updated. This garden gets a lot of good morning shade. The sun's just now peeking through. It's probably 8:30 about now. And it's cool. We were worried about this pecan tree right here. We actually pruned him about a month and a half ago, and he was all the way stretched out to where the tips of his branches would have ended right over that tomato plant. And we cut him very short this year because we thought growing produce was more important than having shade from this pecan tree when we already have this massive pecan tree which produces a lot of fruit. But we were worried that we were going to kill this one by trimming him back so much, and you can see that that's not the case. I kind of knew he would come back because this stump is also from the same plant, and he came back really well right here. And that's essentially what this tree is this left alone long enough will turn into another tree. So he came back pretty well. Alright, well that is week 5. We can't wait to see y'all. If y'all liked this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. Otherwise, we will see you next Sunday. We upload new garden tours every Sunday. So we'll see you next week. Let's go say goodbye to the chickens before I leave ya. Girls! Hey girls! Come on girls! Good job! Good girls! You guys want to say goodbye to everybody? You know, say goodbye? We'll see you next week. Say, we'll see you next week. Come on guys, parrots can talk. I don't think I'm going to teach my chickens to talk. Alright, y'all have a good